Hey guys, here today, going to show you how to navigate through the AEM FIC. Obviously you need to download and install that on your computer. If you don't have the software, you can go to AEM's website and get it from there. Show you how to go there. If you go here, you can go to the top of the screen here where it says software downloads. Click on that, and then you'll just find whatever particular one you're using. For us, we're using a fuel ignition controller, which is right here. Go on and click that, and then we will be using the FIC 6. Obviously they have the 8 and 4 as well, and you would just download it here. I've already downloaded it, so I'm not going to do that. First thing you'll want to do is to open up the software, and this is pretty much what it looks like. It's nothing exciting. Over here you'll have file, which you can flash the FIC with various different firmwares that come out. For the IS300, I'll be using the Z104 firmware. It seems to work the best. And then there's other, options up here. Setup, about. Nothing too exciting there, but after you've got your AEM wired in and all that set up, first thing you want to do is to set up the calibration. So in order to do that, you're going to, now obviously I'm on my desktop right now, but if you have your laptop, you're going to take and you're going to plug it into the FIC, and then you're going to go on ahead and go to setup. And normally if the FIC was connected right now, this calibration guy right here would be available to click. What you would do is just click on it. It'll bring up a small box here in the middle that says there's one calibration to do the TPS. What you would do is turn the key on. What you would do is follow the prompts that are on there. I believe you have to leave the key on, engine off, and that way you can read what 0% throttle is. And then you'll go on ahead and go to full throttle, and it'll read that. It'll pretty much tell you everything you need to do there. Then it'll also want to calibrate the RPM gauge. There should be a value on top that you can enter in. It could be 1,000 RPMs, it can be 9,000 RPMs. It really doesn't matter. You pick whichever one you want. And then what you're going to do is hold the throttle at, say, 1,000 RPMs. If you pick that, you're going to hold the throttle at 1,000 RPMs for, I believe, 10 seconds, and then it'll calibrate on its own. And after that, you'll be good to go. After you got all your calibrations done, they're pretty simple. It's only RPMs and throttle position. After you do that, you can go on ahead and open up a base calibration file. You would do that by just going up here to this little arrow that has a little green arrow on it, and just click the button, or alternatively you can go to File, Open. It does the same thing. Once you're in this particular menu, you'll see that, obviously I have just only 2 tunes in here currently. I have other tunes on my laptop, but for you guys, you won't have any of these tunes at all. What it'll say in there is a base calibration file, which is this guy right here. So that's the one you want to open. Now, when you do, say you open up this file and you start making changes within the file, it's automatically going to save that. So what I'd highly suggest you guys do is to just right click on it and copy it, and then make another one, so that way you have 2 basically. So that way whatever changes you make to one, if you mess up or something, you can easily just revert back to the other one if you need to. So what I'm going to do is just open up the base calibration file, just click on it and press open, and voila. Doesn't look like much change, but if you notice up here, these are all now selectable items. As before, if you click this up here on the left, this will close the file, and they're all gray. Can't do anything with them. So we'll open up the base calibration, and now it's open. So to run down what's going on up here is you have your open and close up here. This button right here, if you just highlight over them, it'll tell you what it does. This button right here will allow you to connect directly to the FIC if you have it plugged up via the USB cable. If you click on this, obviously, if I click on it, I have no FIC hooked up, so it's trying to find it, but it's not there. Yours will usually find it and it won't be a problem. If you do click on this right here and you have the FIC connected, you'll get a screen that says that possibly the tune that's on the computer doesn't match the tune that's on the FIC. That's no big deal. If you're sitting here, on your laptop or whatever, making changes to your tune and you connect the FIC, what you want to do is click the button that says to the FIC, which means it's going to take the file from the computer and flash it onto the FIC. And then obviously there's another button that says to get the information from the FIC, meaning it's going to take the FIC's tune that's already on the FIC and load it up on your computer. It's pretty self-explanatory there. The other buttons you have here are these three buttons right here are just the buttons to change how it looks like. So say if I open up these menus, I can click this button and it'll place them all evenly for me. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. So if I open up another one and click this file, I'll make it like this. If I open up something else and click like that, it'll stack them all together. That's all those buttons do. Next, right here, you have a gauges button. If my FIC was connected, I would be able to select this button, and that's going to bring up the gauges that are located internally within this software. There is a RPM gauge that you can fully customize. You can change how high it revs to, and I'll get into that hopefully here in a minute. And then you have, it'll show injector duty cycle, it'll show math, it'll show all that stuff. So I'll try and go grab my FIC and plug it up in here so you guys can see what it looks like. Next to that, you'll have an ignition map, the fuel map, mass airflow sensor map, the O2 map, and then two analog maps, which you probably won't even use because I'm not even using them. The only ones that I'm actually using in here are the ignition and the fuel map. Then next to that, you have a undo button and a redo button. Over here, you'll have a logger button, so you can take data logs. The thing about this is it doesn't really save the data logs internally. So if you want to save a data log, you have to manually push this button, or you can hook it up to a switch if you want. But either way, you'll have to manually do that, and then start it, drive, do whatever pull you're going to do, and then you have to manually push the button again, and then it'll ask you to save it onto your computer. So that's how that works. And then lastly, we have the system setup. Okay, so with the setup menu here open, let me just run through a few of these items because you're not even going to touch all of this. At the top here, you'll have the fuel little section here. You'll have an injector response time. You can change this based on whatever injectors you use. Most injectors, aftermarket injectors, will come with dead times as written by the manufacturer. So you can just go on ahead and match that. In my particular files, I didn't touch this at all. I just left it alone, and it seems to be doing just fine. The load input, you can change between TPS or MAF. Mine is on MAF. And then under this, you'll have the acceleration enrichment. You'll have sensitivity, which basically means the lower the number, the more sensitive it'll be. Basically, if you say I put a 5% here, if the computer reads that I moved the throttle more than 5%, it'll actually, it can change and add whatever amount of fuel that I put in here. If I put 50% extra fuel, basically meaning when you go wide open throttle, or you stab the throttle, you can adjust the fueling as you need. And then you can adjust for how long it keeps the injectors open. On my particular tune, I believe I have the sensitivity at 8% and the fuel is at 1.2% currently, and I have the duration left the same. So you're just going to have to play with this and figure out what your car likes, because I am on the stock injectors. Obviously, if you go to different size injectors, it's going to matter. The next section is the ignition box right here. The load input for me is a map because I'm using the internal map sensor that's in the FIC. If you wanted to use MAF, you can, or TPS, you can. I highly suggest you use the map. And the slew rate I just left alone, I didn't touch it. Next you'll have the MAF here. Load input obviously is going to be MAF. In the mode, I think the default is voltage. What you want to do is switch that to %, because if you leave it on voltage, you will have to go in and make your whole MAF map, which is a considerable amount of time. So you don't want to do that. When you put it on %, the FIC will just read what the stock MAF sensor is inputting, and it won't change it at all. It'll just output the exact same signal that it's getting, so that way the stock computer is happy. MAF clamps, I'll probably just make a different video on a MAF clamp. I currently have mine set at 3.7 volts, but that's going to vary depending on where you live, elevation, and whatnot. So if you want more detail on that, just ask me and I can make another video on that. And then the analog A and B, I'm not using at all, so I didn't even touch them. The COM port up here basically is where your FIC is going to be plugged into your computer. This is going to change. You don't have to do anything with that. Then the load display units, all you have choice of is kPa, and which is kilopascals, or PSIA, which is atmosphere pressure. So basically anything above 14.7 PSIA will be boost. Anything below that will be vacuum. Switch input, you can set this up with a switch so that you can push the switch and it'll start the data log, or if you push the switch, it'll switch to like a different fuel map, like a high boost and a low boost map. I haven't set mine up yet, but mine is on dual calibration. And then you have your O2 section here, which I haven't touched at all. I mean, you're more than welcome to try to get into this. I tried to mess with it a little bit, but the stock computer is kind of fighting this, so I kind of just didn't even mess with it anymore. Then you'll have your logger parameters. You can just read through that, and then your switched input, you can read through that. Alright, so after you get your setup done, I'm going ahead and pretty much just going ahead and make a base fuel map. You can do that by just clicking on the fuel map and it'll open it up. And by the way, if you click on like a MAF map or the ignition map, it looks like nothing else open, but if you just move these things, you'll see you can read the top of them. This says map, this one says fuel, and so on and so forth. But anyway, you want to open up a fuel map, and obviously this is a base calibration, so all these are going to be 0. And this thing is fully customizable, you know, as far as the range. So if you, for my case, for my car, it's an automatic. I think the factory red line is like 6,400 RPMs or 6,500, somewhere around there. So you can bring this out to whatever. So if you want to click in the gray box up here, double click it, and I'm going to put, say, I don't know, 7,000 up here, enter. You can do that. I mean, what you want to do is to grab and drag all this along, right click, and you can click calculate, and it'll automatically space all the breakpoints evenly for you, so that way you don't have to do that. Same over here on the load side that says PSIA. As I mentioned earlier, PSIA is basically reading vacuum and boost. So 0 up until about 14.7 PSIA is vacuum. 14.7 is actually atmospheric pressure. So anything above that will be boost. Okay, so if you're running 5 pounds of boost, you'll want to make sure that you take this up to at least a 20 right here. So we'll go ahead and put 20 in there. And I'll drag it all the way down, right click, and calculate. So that way I have, you know, the range. Obviously you can put whatever you want in here. If you're running 40, 50 pounds of boost, whatever you're going to run, that's what you're going to change. Now that you have that settled, you can modify any one cell, you know, completely on its own by just obviously double clicking on it and You can type in whatever you want, 15, 20, 120, doesn't matter. And that's what's going to be in there. You can also right click and, or excuse me, you can just left click and select everything. You can press Control A and that'll select everything. And you can set a value, you can change a value, or if you notice there's a little plus or minus here, it'll, up, it'll take it up a certain percentage with plus, or you can subtract. But anyway, I'm going to set my values now at all at 0 because I just need to start there. So now to set up this base fuel map, you can right click anywhere on the map, and if you see right here, it'll say create base fuel map. Just click on that. It'll ask you for your new injector size in cc's. So let's say I'm going to run the stock 250 cc injectors, so I'm going to write 250 cc's is my new injector size, and the stock injector size is 250 cc, so I'm going to write 250 cc for both. Obviously, if you have different size injectors, you can go ahead and write that in. Then you want to write your max RPM you're going to rev the car to. I'm just going to say 7,000, even though I'm not going to do that. I just want to have me a little bit of a buffer there. And then you'll write your max boost. Keep in mind that it's PSI-A, so make sure you get that right. Then click OK. Then that'll go on ahead and generate a base fuel map for you. So you can see everything that's 15 PSI-A and below, there's no change because that's vacuum. That's just normal driving. Nothing is going to matter there. And then everything above that, you can see as you go up higher in the boost value, it's adding percentage to the injector duty. So starts with 8%, 16, 25, and so on and so forth. So this is what I used when I first started the car. I used this map right here, and then I went on ahead and made changes to it as I needed to, which obviously you could do by just selecting whatever you want, right clicking and clicking set value, and that'll change it. What I highly suggest doing in the beginning is to just select whole rows, right clicking and then hitting the plus button, or if you press Control U, if you press Control U, it'll up the percentage, or Control D, it'll take the percentage back down. So that's how you'd set up a base fuel map. Alright, so in the same fashion of the way you made a base fuel map, you'll make an ignition base map exactly the same way. Just go up and click the ignition tab up here, or the I tab, and that'll bring up the ignition map in degrees. What you want to do is mimic the same scale for your PSI-A as you did on your fuel map. Just do the same. So on ours we did 20, so I'm going ahead and put 20 over here again. Press enter and then select all the way down, right click, click calculate, and it'll be the same. Same for the same thing for the RPMs up here. Really this stuff will be determined when you insert the values, but just so you know how to kind of manipulate the map, I'm going to put 7,000 over here again. Left click and select it all, right click and calculate, and it'll set all the breakpoints evenly for me. So again, you can do the exact same things of this map as you can all the other maps. What you want to do is right click, click create base ignition map. Then you'll have your maximum RPM, which again, I'm going to set mine to 7,000, even though I'm not going to rev it that high, but you guys, manual guys with a little bit of valve train work, you easily can rev to 7,000. So set it at 7,000. Make sure you set your max boost, and make sure you get it correct because this is PSI-A. So make sure you get that correct. And a good rule of thumb for anyone, doing ignition timing is to just pull a degree out per every pound of boost you make. That is the great rule of thumb. It's really safe, and that way you don't have to worry about detonation or anything being wrong. Obviously you're cramming a lot more boost into the cylinder. You don't want to also have a tremendous amount of timing along with that boost, because you will break something. So I have mine set up to pull 1 degree out, and it's already actually set default at 1 degree. So I mean, you can write -2 degrees if you want, but I have mine set up to take away 1 degree. Then click OK. And as you can see, everything again below 15 psi is just vacuum, normal driving, nothing needs to change there. Then as you build boost, it will start to pull timing away. Obviously starting at 1 pound of boost here all the way up to, it looks like this actually went up to 10 pounds of boost. So it'll pull that out for you. So you can obviously change this. You can do whatever you want with it. Again, you can press Control A to select it all. And if you press Control U, it'll bring everything up. Control D, it'll bring everything down. But yeah, so I'm going to set my values at 0. Actually, I'm going to create it again because I know I just messed it all up right now. And here we are, back to the base map. So this is what I'm using currently on my car as well. I actually haven't even touched the ignition at all. I just set it right now for the base. And the only one I've really been manipulating is a fuel map. This thing seems to be holding steady. It's doing just fine. So that would be how you make an ignition map. Super simple. So that'll probably be it for this video. If you guys want me to go over more of the other items like the math map here, which by the way mine is 0, or the O2 map, you can also change. Just let me know whatever you guys want me to try and go over. As I mentioned earlier, you can set up a math clamp on this car, and obviously if your car wasn't boosted before and now you're turbocharging it, not only IS300s, any car that runs a MAF, you need to set up a MAF clamp. Otherwise, you're going to get a check engine light for the MAF sensor being out of range. So if you guys want some information on how to do that, just ask me in the comments below and I can go ahead and show that to you. Aside from that, I think I pretty much went over everything that you would need to do and how to kind of manipulate the maps. And obviously, a lot of the settings are going to vary depending on your setup and where you live. Mostly elevation is going to play a huge role in what your maps look like and whatnot. Obviously every car is different, so I hope this helped you guys out. I know it was a longer video, but it's kind of what the tech series videos are. They're a little bit longer, try to explain everything in depth, and that way it helps somebody out. So if you're new to the channel, appreciate you stopping by. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and share the video with your buddies. I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.